As we wind down 2022 and get prepared for 2023, it's important to note the benefits of resting and to implement it into our daily lives. In this live, we'd like to invite our community to a healing session to center the revolution of prioritizing rest. We'll discuss rest, its benefits, and why it's an essential part of nurturing one's being.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Tak. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a partner at BIPOC Executive Search and currently based in Halifax on Mi'kmaq Treaty Territories. I'd like to start off with this land acknowledgement to honor the land, yes, and the First Peoples, and also to draw attention to the importance of the land and the earth to all of us. We would not be here without her. And she constantly reminds me to slow down, especially in this time of the year, to take that rest, to notice what the rest of the earth and our animal kin and plants and fungi and everyone is doing, which is slowing down, y'all. So would like to share an acknowledgement of the land for our firm as well. BIPOC Executive Search Inc. headquarters are based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in these borders. And we acknowledge that our main location is situated on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. They are the first peoples of the land. And for all of us non-Indigenous members of our firm, we continue to honor the land's history, educate ourselves, unlearn, and also to play an active role in redressing systemic, structural, and historical disadvantages facing the Indigenous communities. And one piece that I've really learned from my Indigenous mentors has been this piece around our relationship to the land and sort of thinking through how we can move from this notion of everything being faster and faster, exponential growth, productivity, linear progress, to thinking through and reminding ourselves of our ancestral worldviews, of cyclical natures, of slowing down, of being in community with each other. So with that, would love to invite in my amazing community. So I get to invite in Shirley Lay, Melissa Sumnath, Candace Frederick, my fellow partners at the firm. Welcome, everyone. So before we jump into things and folks get to introduce themselves, I'll just briefly run through a few housekeeping items. The first main one is around presence. So really inviting everyone here to turn off their phones. I'm looking down at mine, making sure mine is off. Turn off your phones. Close down those emails. I know working virtually, it's very easy for us to say, oh, you know what, I'll multitask. But really, it's part of this calming of the nervous system to really just be present with where you are. So if possible, invite you to close down those inboxes, turn everything on silent, and just be here with us. Feel your feet on the ground. And with that, would love to pass it on over to you, Shirley, then Candace and Melissa, just to introduce yourselves in whichever way you would like.
Thank you, Tak, for that wonderful opener and for inviting us into a space of groundedness. Hello, everyone. My name is Shirley Lay. I use she, her pronouns. Like Tak said, I'm a partner at BIPOC Executive Search. My training, my background, as all of you know, is in clinical psychology with an emphasis in critical race, social justice, and also community engaged practices. I also identify politically as a woman of color. And so this topic of restoration is part of my toolbox, not just survival, but as a means of protest. So I'm delighted to share space to chat more about that. Over to you, Candace.
Hi, everyone. I'm also a partner. As you can see, my nervous system is still calming down. as we come into this space. And there are a couple of different, intersections that are really important for me that I think I bring to this work and just like bring to life overall. So my family immigrated from Grenada in the Caribbean, specifically in the 1980s to what we colonially call Canada. And I think that really informs my perspective around relationship, around home, around community in very particular and specific ways. So I think being grounded, as we're talking about ancestry and we're talking about kind of where we come from, that's my original starting point. And that's how I think I come into conversation. That's how I come into community. And that's where I learned the most around connection and place, and also just being from a small island and all of the things that go along with that in terms of relationship building, I think is an important part of who I am and how I identify and how I try to show up in this life. So I will stop there and pass it over to you, Melissa.
Thanks so much, Candace. I could listen to the three of you all day. I can feel my insides easing, actually, in listening to you. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Melissa Sumnoth, also, of course, a partner here at BIPOC Executive Search. My pronouns are she, her, and L. How do I enter into this work? A few ways. I'll share a little bit around my ancestry as well. So my ancestors were brought over as indentured laborers from India over to Guyana. And, they were promised land. They didn't get that land. And the part of Guyana that they landed in was colonized by the British. And so my parents left Guyana in the 70s, early 70s, to come to this land. And my body has been held by this land since birth. So I'm first generation Canadian. I am also a melanated, curvy woman that has held spaces in people and culture, in sort of HR spaces. And I think of myself as a non-traditional HR person as well. I think a lot of organizations have emphasis on quicker, faster, more productive. And so my entering into this space has been from a place of unlearning and liberating myself. When I say liberation, I come from a space of decolonizing my own mind, because I think that work kind of starts there. So those are the pieces that I'll share here in this moment. But of course, I'm a daughter, I'm a cousin, I'm an auntie, I'm a friend, I'm a colleague, and a few other things. So thanks so much. Back over to you, Tak.
Thanks so much, Melissa, and totally echo what you just shared. I already feel myself just coming down after, what everyone does during the day, meetings, work, tending to care work, all of that. So it's really great to cultivate this space with you all. And I appreciate you all sharing, parts of yourself that I know a little bit about, but every time I get to speak with you, I get to learn more. We're going to go into a bit of a grounding exercise just to bring ourselves into our bodies a little bit and to give folks listening, tuning in with us, that opportunity to actually take rest, in addition to us sharing our reflections around what rest means for us. So both those pieces of feeling, thinking, being embodied. So what I'm going to do is invite everyone, including the panel, if you feel safe and comfortable to do so, to close your eyes whenever you feel ready. And I'm going to take about 3 to 4 minutes, let's say, to guide us through a bit of a meditation, and then we'll jump back into the discussion. So whenever you're ready, feel free to close your eyes. Amazing. And I'm going to be drawing on my own ancestors. So my ancestors, thank you all for sharing yours, are from the Punjab region of India and Pakistan, which also underwent and continues to undergo many waves of colonization. And we have many philosophies of being, worldviews. You all might have heard of the philosophy of yoga. There's the philosophies and medicines of Ayurveda. And some of the circulating themes are the idea that in addition to body and mind, we're also energy, which is congruent with some sort of biomedical or quantitative science ideas about, electromagnetic field and what our atoms are doing. So it's one of these things that are parallel in many of our ancestral traditions. And thinking about energy, we can think about different chakras or energy centers within our body, from the top of our head all the way down to the base of our spine to our toes, almost like little whirlpools, tidal waves, rivers, oceans, streams of energy flowing through us and around us, connecting us with ourselves, with each other, with the land, with the cosmos. So what we're going to do in this meditation is sort of tune into those different energies. So we'll start just by tuning into where our breath is at today. So just noticing our breathing. Seeing if we can breathe into the base of our lungs. And as we do so, just noticing what our thoughts are doing. Where are they at? Are they flowing? They flowing fast? Flowing slow? What sort of thoughts are coming up? And then noticing if you can feel your feet wherever they are. Just noticing the bottoms of our feet touching the land, touching the floor, touching our chairs. Where are they? Amazing. Just going to invite you all, keep breathing at your own pace. Maybe think about breathing deeply into the base of your lungs. You can even put a hand on your belly, just to feel your belly rise and fall as you breathe. You can just listen to me. You don't have to do anything other than breathing. And I'm going to share a reflection with our eyes closed that came up as we were preparing for this call, which was that sometimes even when we do take rest, lying on our bed for a few minutes or on the floor of our office, sometimes it's very hard to even just slow down, tune out those thoughts about the emails that we need to send, the dinner we need to cook. It can be challenging for sure. So what I'm going to have us practice is to actually use those thoughts and use our third eye, our mind's eye, the top of our head, our energy center, our imagination center, to rather than try and ignore the thoughts and thinking, to use them to think about something pleasurable, joyful, fun. So in these 30 seconds, just conjure up an image of like your ideal fun situation. Is it on a beach somewhere at some amazing hotel with, pineapples being served to you by your friend who's with you? Is it being cozy in a cabin somewhere with a wood fire? Is it on a dance floor? I'll just be silent for a few seconds and have you all use your mind's eye and imagine that fun, pleasurable, joyful thing that's coming up for you. Amazing. You're doing so great. And I'm going to invite you to notice the thinking, the seeing through your third eye, but then also, are you smiling? Do you feel joy in your body? Just notice what the rest of your body is doing while your head and sort of that upper body energy, crown energy is daydreaming. Well done. So we're gonna go down one level to sort of the center of our body. And I'm gonna invite you all to imagine and feel what it feels like to radiate happiness. So if you can imagine yourself being a ball of energy of happiness and joy, what does it feel like in your body to radiate that out? So maybe it's a really wide smile. Maybe you can literally see like a rainbow coming out of you. Take a few seconds now to feel in and radiate out joy and happiness for yourself and everything that you do. Well done, everyone. And then last thing we're going to do is really go into that grounding. Again, feeling our root and feet, feeling the lower half of our body and energetic field that's very much connected to the earth. And just see if you can, again, no thinking required, no work required. Just see if you can notice your feet. Feel them. Maybe wiggle your toes a little bit. Amazing. Okay. Well done, everyone. So what I'll do now is just ask you all to maybe rub your hands together or rub them against your thighs, wiggle your fingers and toes. Just bring yourself back to the outside of our bodies. Back here. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the room. Welcome back. Thanks everyone for indulging me and taking that time to care for yourselves with our eyes closed. Just take a little break and breather there. And with that, now that we're here and present in our bodies, I would love to pass it on over to our amazing panel to ask you the question, what is your relationship to rest? And I would love to start with you, Candice, and then feel free to pass it on to whomever after you share your stories.
Thank you for that invitation, Tak. And thanks for just some time to arrive, actually, in this space together, but in our bodies. And, you know, this conversation around rest, it's interesting because I would say that I feel a push-pull with rest, right? Where there are times where I'm able to like lean in, and other times where I find it quite difficult to access rest. And I mean, I think that there are some really structural pieces. So as I was reflecting on my answer, there was a quote that kind of came up, which might flash on the screen in a little bit, just around thinking about rest in the context of oppression and systemic forces, which, you know, I think condition us in very particular ways and orient us in this conversation. And so, you know, I think about the fact that I grew up with this narrative around working twice as hard. That's not unique to me. I think a lot of people of color, women of color, lots of other marginalized folks, whether that's articulated or not, you know, are conditioned towards this having to prove ourselves. And, you know, I've had this other recent thought with that in working twice as hard, I am sometimes twice as hard on myself, that my expectations of myself become unrealistic because what is asked of me is sometimes unrealistic. But then the third piece, in terms of thinking about leaning into more ease and care and love and generosity, with self and with others is I'm thinking that if I'm working twice as hard and if I'm acknowledging that this sometimes means I'm twice as hard on myself, then I need to double down on the care, right? In a very real way. And I think that thinking about how I can normalize rest and care for myself, so that it's not, reaching a state of I've had enough or burnout before then, because then I don't know that I'm necessarily resting. I feel like there's a crisis response that's happening, right? It's almost just like collapse. But thinking about ways that I can have a bit more ease, right? I think that's in the ecosystem of rest. So, like as I was getting ready, I have, my candle and I have my essential oil and I'm sitting on a heating pad. And I was like trying to roll my shoulders and just like do things that, would help my body. Because I think that the learning for me is that yes, it's important to take vacation and have rest days, but there's also these moments that I can have throughout my day, to cultivate a feeling of rest and ease in whatever my endeavor is. So maybe I'll just pause there, but that's a bit of how I'm walking into this conversation. So maybe I will pass it on to Shirley to hear, and then we can go from there.
Oof. Thank you, Candice, for leaning into this conversation and being grounded in the moment as you digest and metabolize what it means to you in a really public way. So I feel flattered that I get to share space where I get to hold this very intimate information with you. So regarding my relationship to rest, relaxation, and rejuvenation, it's a very complex one. And very heady one too, because I'm always grappling with what does it mean to me, and am I giving myself permission to engage in these things? I have quite a bit of internalized oppression, meaning that I self-police in terms of how much rest and restoration I'm allowed to have. Any moment that I feel fatigued, there's another part of me that says, keep going. Just work for one more minute, work for one more minute. And then after a while, my body protests by giving up. Literally, it shuts down. My eyes start to glaze over the work, and it just doesn't work anymore. And that's when I know I need to rest. But going back to Candice's point, that's too late. That is way too late, because my body had to sustain so many no's, so many rejections to get to that point. And now the only way to protest is to shut down. Right? And as human beings, that's one of the last ways of survival, is when we collapse. Our first instinct is to run away. If we can't run away, then we fight. If we can't fight, then we collapse. And so if I'm at the collapse state, then I'm in it for far too long. And if you do it once, I think that's fine. But I tend to do it to myself all day, every day, for years to come. And then I get to a point of resentment. Resentment to the point of I don't want to do anything at all. And then my mind goes to, I wish I could be at the street corner selling lemonade, where I can just turn everything off and do something that doesn't require that much thinking or processing or doing, where I'm just being. So that's how complicated the relationship is to me, and that rest to me is supposed to be healing. Rest shouldn't just be sleeping and then waking up the next day and then keep going. If I don't feel healed from the rest, then I haven't rested. And healing looks like whether or not the muscles on my face feels relaxed, whether or not my nervous system feels calm, whether or not I can be flexible in my environment, whether or not I want to reach out to people to laugh, whether or not I give myself nourishment, right? So for me, those are indicators of whether or not I feel rested. So if possible, I would love to put a quote on the screen. And it is a quote regarding why rest is important. Oftentimes for people of color, women of color in particular, have to shoulder the burden of fixing a system that we didn't create in the first place. So that means that we have our regular day jobs, and then the unpaid labor is having to fight systems like what Candace had shared, systems that continue to oppress us. So every time we're told to work harder, faster, with fewer resources, we have to eat the cost of that. And that has a weathering effect on our bodies and nervous system. That stuff's unpaid for, and that's the stuff that really are barriers to my ability to rest and restore. And so I've been working my darndest these days. Every minute I have that battle of listening to my body, really deferring to it in terms of what it needs and wants, and then enacting on it. So if my body says it's enough for the day, or this is not the moment to tend to this project, I'm listening to it more. And for some reason, and maybe not for some reason, I'm really happy that this is happening. I see glimpses of myself empathizing with my body. I go, oof, that sucks that you had to endure that, right? I'm starting to feel those moments, and I've never felt it before. And it's because of this very dedicated, painstaking practice, and I'm constantly fighting it, having that conflict. So that's what's sitting with me right now, and I'll end my words here. But with that, I would love to hear what Melissa has to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing, Shirley and Candace. Tak, I want to honor the fact that we got to rest in that moment and you held us there. So thank you so, so much for that. When I visualized my happy place, or my place that brought me joy, it was a house party, and it had friends and it had family, cousins running around and laughing, aunties drinking rum out of a coffee mug. That's where I went. So I really appreciate you bringing that in. You know, when I think about my relationship with rest, it is also a complicated one. It is one that's rooted in history. You know, when I think about my ancestors, how they were treated, how their bodies were treated, and socialized into not allowing space for rest, forget about rejuvenation. And so, you know, with part of what I shared as well with my parents coming to Canada in the early 70s, that was not a welcoming time for folks. That wasn't a time for folks that looked different, sounded different, ate different, dressed different, just was not a welcoming time. And so a lot of that learning came with, you've got to do better. You've got to speak properly. We've got to go to the Hindu temple to keep in community there, but you also have to go to church to assimilate. And then that gets compounded, right? In my experience in organizations, whether it was small, medium, or large, it is this constant piece around hustle. And what I've learned about that is hustle is in opposition to flow. And so if I want to be in a place of flow, what does that mean? So my relationship to rest, a lot of it had to do with unlearning, actually. And when I think about sort of the peeling back of that unlearning, I don't think I realized, and I had shared this when we were preparing for the conversation, there was a moment in my 30s where I loosened my belly and I hadn't even realized it was tight for as long as it was. I remember the moment, actually, where I thought, oh, whoa, what was that? And so that started my journey with understanding like what's happening inside of me. I'm not outside of my own experience. And I love how you brought us through the chakras as well, because what was happening before was it only existed here. And that learning of no, it is all of you that's part of this experience. And once I started getting to know that part of myself, I mean, this has been years of, I mean, the work, right? It's an ongoing thing. But getting really up close and personal with my triggers, with, okay, what's happening with me? I'm breathing really shallow. Or, ooh, my tummy got tense there. Or I'm closing off, I'm getting protective. Like just noticing those signs for me was part of, I think, my liberation journey, really. Because, of course, a lot of those things were attached to these different isms, whether it was racism, capitalism, the patriarchy, like all of these systems that are telling us something very opposite from rest, relax, and rejuvenate. And that can feel really heavy when that large scale. So part of that practice for me was thinking about, okay, when this is true, um, how do I want to enter into understanding what's coming up for me? What comes up for me is this great quote from Adrienne Murray Brown. And in it, you know, talking about this connection to it's in every moment. Here, Adrian's talking about liberation, where it's this big vision around small acts of liberation. It is that I am in the space I'm in, and I'm not outside of it. And so in those spaces, when I think about, okay, incremental shifts towards more positive habits in a non-judgmental kind of way. That was the really important part for me, that non-judgmental of the way versus, oh, I didn't do the thing. Oh, I know affirmations are good for me, but I didn't get to it today, and beating myself up about it. Now I'm getting to a place of it's okay. It's okay. Maybe you can create a minute now to do it. Or, it's okay. If your breathing gets tight, it's your body telling you, pay attention to this. There's something here. What can I pour into it? Maybe it is, I'm a big fan of the happiness frequency. It helps me calm down, get my head into a certain space. I too love the lavender as well. One of our colleagues, Olivia, just did her podcast featuring lavender. That really helps. So, it's a practice. It's a practice. It's an everyday practice for me. It looks different every day in terms of what calls in and what sort of the pendulum my body is needing to lean into or lean away from. So I'll pause there. Tak, I'd love to hear about your thoughts here as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Melissa. And thanks everyone for sharing. There were so many pieces in what you shared that just resonated with me so much. And just to anyone listening and our panel, I'd invite us to notice what our bodies are doing right now. Are we a little bit clenched? Are we a little bit clenched right now? Just thinking about, we might be feeling even more relaxed, or we might just be feeling like, oh God, I feel all those things and I need to be resting right now. So just notice what you're doing, how your body's feeling. Let yourself unclench and relax. And yeah, so much to share, so much to share. I feel honored to hold space with you all. And just briefly, I'll share a reflection, and then I have another question to ask you all before we invite our amazing Stacey Ann in to close us off. I would say that my relationship to rest, definitely everything you shared, Candace, this piece around like resting just as hard as we are expected to work in some ways. Shirley, what you shared about noticing what your body needs and that empathy for your body. Ooh, I love that. and Melissa, this idea that it looks different every single day and that it's okay. Like, it's okay if we didn't do the meditation. It's okay that we didn't do the workout. Like, we did what we needed to do. Maybe we like lip sing to the new Beyonce album. I'm not saying that from any personal experience, but like maybe that's what we do. But for me, my relationship to rest definitely shifted after I finished grad school, because shout out to any of the students out there. It's very easy to feel like we always have to be doing something. If you're in school, you're studying for something, you have exams, you have a thesis, dissertation, you're writing, it's just always there, always present, even when you're taking a break. So shifting to like 9 to 5 full-time corporate work without that was very different for me. It's like, oh, wait, I don't have to do homework or writing like on evenings and weekends all the time. So it's been really nice for me to lean into that since starting with the firm, and my relationship to rest has definitely shifted, which has been lovely. So appreciate you asking me, Melissa. Next question I want to ask you all, and feel free to take a minute or two to share. You all know that I love a good manifestation. I love daydreaming. And I'm going to ask you all, if you had a month, I know this is a long time, but if you had a month just like free, all paid, infinite money, like everything, somebody has taken care of your work, like you don't need to feel guilty, oh God, there's somebody else who's doing the interviews. No, you get the month to yourselves to just chill. What would you do? And I know a minute or two is short, but I'm inviting us because, maybe we'll manifest it. So we can go in the same order, Candace, Shirley, and then Melissa sharing, and then we'll invite Stacey Ann in.
Oh gosh, what wouldn't I do? Well, I would be on the beach, which is my happy place. Maybe I'd be on several beaches, because why stop at one if I have a month? I could be on several beaches. I would be eating delicious things. I would be reading all of the books. So all the lists that I keep about books. And I would be just like around people that just allowed me to settle, where there was just ease and mutuality, and it just feels like everything is possible in that time. And I'm also, I guess, picturing that when it's not beach time, there would be a fire at night, because I love being around a fire. It really helps my nervous system quite a lot. And I would just like gaze at the stars at night. Yeah, so thank you for that. Like, I'm there now, in case anybody is wondering. I'm mentally there now. So that's my piece, and I'll pass it to you, Shirley.
Candace, I like how you say, I am put on the spot and I'm not really sure what's going to come out of my mouth, but we can tell that you've been fantasizing about these pieces and good on you for doing that. You are allowed to. So I love to imagine and reimagine what rest and restoration could look like. If I had a month and I can put all my life responsibilities aside, the first thing that comes to mind is if I could engage in something with my hands from beginning to end. So I'm thinking about horticulture, I'm thinking about planting, I'm thinking about growing things, nurturing things. We use so many good analogies of tilling the soil, planting seeds, watching it grow, that I would like to enact it. And if I could do something with my hands and my body in connection to the land and nature, and I can move away from here into my heart, into my soul nerve, my body a little bit more, then I think with that full month, I can be fully nurtured. So much of our work is we get to see a part of the full picture. We don't get to see the whole thing. We don't get to see it come out at the very end. And there's sometimes it can be unfulfilling in that regard. And so if I can use my hands, go from beginning to end, and then feel nourished by it, that is something that's going to be rejuvenate to me. Over to you, Melissa.
I love that. I love that beginning to end, and getting your hands in some dirt. That feels really good. I feel like our places are very similar, Candace, in terms of what I would do and where I would go. So what I'll share here is like when I'm thinking about being in water that can pick you up and put you down and pick you up and put you down, pick you up and put you down, is definitely part of that. A part of it is around being able to look up into the vast sort of abyss of stars is something I love to do, especially in August. One thing that month would have to have for me, I'm at my most alive when I'm laughing. When I crack a joke and someone else laughs at it, or when I'm laughing with folks. So it would involve my sort of trust crew in that month as well. I envision us in trees of hammocks. And so I'll pause there.
Ooh, I love this, y'all. I love it. Like, okay, let us start the planning. I hope somebody was taking notes because this is all happening. We'll take 3 months. We'll do all these things with each one of you. I so appreciate you all sharing that and letting us into your daydreams. And again, I just want to invite people to notice how you feel in your body right now. After Candace, Shirley, Melissa just shared those visions with us, do you feel different than you did 5 minutes ago or at the beginning of this call? And what's that feeling? How can we, radiate it out? I'm a big believer that we, as much as the things that are going on externally do affect us, we do have internal capacity and agency to be able to live through our own emotional states and decide, how we want to feel in our body. So appreciate you all sharing that joy with us. And in these next few minutes, would love, love, love to invite our producer extraordinaire, Stacey Ann Buchanan, who is just our director, our amazing, amazing producer for these live series. And Stacey Ann, I know you have some pieces to share around rest, but also giving the audience some context for the live series, what your vision was for this year and what they can expect for next year. Anything you want to share, Stacey Ann, over to you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Tak. Thank you so much, Candace, Melissa, and Shirley. I really appreciate your time, your dedication to doing these lives. It's beyond. Thank you for the check-in as well, Tak. When you asked, how's your body feeling? So the first time when we talked about rest, I was very tense. I was very tense. And then after when we talk about what we're going to do for the month, if we had all of that, I was very excited. So it was really good checking in on that. There's so much to unpack. I can tell you my vision for these lives. When I first pitched the idea to the firm, I wanted the audience to get to know us beyond what we do and who we really are, and also to present gems that folks can really feed off. They can really take a notepad and write these things down because this will really help them. For the last year and change, it has really evolved a lot. And I see that our audience is growing, and I see that it's, excuse me, and I see that it is getting more engaging. So for next year, I definitely want to bring more engagement to it and have it be like a really great show, and to dive into topics that are really unknown or topics that haven't really been talked about before. And like Melissa said, while I'm decolonizing my mind, this is what I'm bringing to the firm in the thoughts. We're already working on that, but in the thoughts of her life, because I feel like everyone can benefit from that. My relationship with rest it's a very complicated one. I felt like it has changed since when the pandemic started in 2020. We all said that 2020 was going to be our year. We all did. It was like 2020 is going to be my year. It was one of those for me where I struggle with high functioning anxiety. So what that does, it makes me super ambitious. I lived on the culture of the hustle culture. I had to keep going. I was that person that says, you know, for instance, 2023 is coming up and you have to plan your year from October of 2022. Did you get your plan down? I was the type to be like, are you up at 5 a.m.? You need to get up. You need to do this. I was like that. And that's because what the high functioning anxiety does to you, it makes you cannot say no. You always want to get something done because you always have to be on the go. Thank God for the pandemic in that sense, because it saved me. Because where was I going? What was I able to do? And I had to sit down and connect with myself and really understand what rest was. I thought rest was just sleeping. Growing up, it's taking naps, it's sleeping. That's what rest. And rest for me is whatever you do that ignites your soul. When you can feel that hug from your ancestors, when you can feel that it brings joy to you, that's what rest is. And rest for me is always celebrating. So we talked about this when we talked about when we had our 2-year anniversary. We talked about what does celebration look like for you. And I say that I celebrate every single thing. So after today's live, I'm going to go celebrate. I'm probably going to get something from Starbucks and I'm going to celebrate. You know why? I've also been in a spot in my life where I struggled so hard with depression and suicidal ideation. I lived in a body with a mind that wanted to die and a body that wanted to survive. So I celebrate everything because I know what it's like to be in a really dark hole. And so resting for me is celebrating. It's doing things that make my soul smiles. It's slowing down. And so since the pandemic started, I started saying no to a lot of things. I unsubscribed from the hustle culture and subscribed to the alignment culture. I told myself that everything, and this is one of my biggest manifestation, what is meant for me will never miss me, because that was my fear, the fear of missing out. Oh my God, I'm gonna miss this opportunity. Nope. If it's for me, it will never miss me. So I'm gonna sign up on that.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Stacey Ann, and love that reminder. What is for us will never pass us. It's going to come with ease. It's going to be buttery. You're going to be like one click of a button and it all comes about. So appreciate you sharing your own reflections, Stacey Ann, your reflections on the live series. And I'm going to invite everybody to, as we close off, remember the beach that Candace talked about. Remember the little tiny seedlings that Shirley talked about popping out, living their best life in the sun. I'm thinking about the laughter that Melissa shared with us. And I'm thinking about the warm drinks and the celebration that Stacey Ann shared with us. So remind yourselves there's always that place in our bodies to come back to, our minds to come back to access that place of rest and joy and pleasure as we go through the day. And, you know, typically we schedule these lives for an hour. We have 10 minutes. We'll close off now. But what I'm going to ask you all to do is not immediately go to your inbox. I'm going to ask you all just to get up, move around, maybe look out a window, do what you need to do to just stay in this place of calm before setting the intention of going back into your workday, whatever that looks like for you, if of course you have capacity and that's accessible to you. So in the meantime, sending you all so much love. We love you all so much. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the new year. Bye, everyone.